Greetings once again from UN Global Compact Network Sri Lanka, as we warmly welcome all our attendees to the session titled MSMEs as a Boon, Surviving COVID-19. A few housekeeping rules before we commence. Simultaneous Sinhala and Tamil language interpretations will be available throughout this virtual event, and we encourage all attendees to utilize this facility if preferred. The interpretation option is available at the bottom of your screen. This session is interactive, and we encourage attendees to use the Q&A function to pose questions to the session panelists. Please tag UN Global Compact Network Sri Lanka and your participation in MGGLB Sri Lanka when sharing on social media. The Network Sri Lanka social media handles will be available in the chat box. Micro, small, and medium enterprises play a major role in most economies, particularly in developing countries. SMEs account for the majority of businesses worldwide and are important contributors to job creation and the global economic development. The session will discuss the extraordinary burden placed on MSMEs as a result of the pandemic in both a global and local context, and how challenges have been converted into opportunities. Our distinguished panelists are as follows. Mr. Suresh Dimel is the Chairman and Chief Executive of the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, and is also the Acting Managing Director of the Global Entrepreneurship Network Sri Lanka. Ms. Randula De Silva is the founder and CEO of Good Life X Private Limited, where she works as a catalyst to empower entrepreneurs to positively disrupt the old transition into a new regenerative economy. Randra is also an advocate of systems and social change and works as a promoter of local arts through her work in independent cinema and new digital media. Ms. Anna Lagon is the co-CEO and Chief Creative Officer of Beo, situated in the Philippines, which has a total retail footprint of 200 branches all over the Philippines. She is also an avid believer in finding ways to lessen the impact of business of fashion on the environment. Ms. Selina Pires is the Director Business Development at Celine, Sri Lanka's only fair trade handloom company and one of the country's largest social enterprises. She's also co-founder and partner at Positive Impact Consultancy, an advisory service assisting stakeholders in various sectors to make purpose-led transformations to create a positive impact. This session will be moderated by Mr. Denver De Silva, Senior Vice President of Virtusa Corporation, who heads the Facilities and Sustainability ESG team for Virtusa Corporation, globally across 50+ locations in 25 countries. Mr. Denver also serves as Virtusa representatives on the board of directors on the UN Global Compact Network Sri Lanka since 2016. Mr. Denver De Silva, over to you to kick off the session.
Thank you very much, Janani, for the introduction, and I wish to thank UN Global Compact for being so kind to have me over to moderate this star-studded panel and session. We are all excited to hear from the panelists who have some extraordinary stories to share and great experiences. And I myself did a little bit of homework to understand a little bit more about SMEs, and found that they are absolutely the backbone of the global economy. And even in Sri Lanka, they account for 75% of the total enterprises in Sri Lanka. That provides about 45% of employment and amounts to about 52% of Sri Lanka's GDP. And I also believe that this comprises of about 500,000 plus enterprises, which is an absolutely large number. And in further research, I also found out that 70% of all tea exports or tea produced in Sri Lanka is done by SMEs. I mean, that's a fabulous structured tea, contribution, and a very powerful contribution to Sri Lanka's economy. And I believe, whilst we are also focused on the UN SDGs and climate change and the impacts that has come, and the resilience to health resilience in the pandemic, I think the SMEs took a fair brunt of it, but they were also the catalyst and the mechanics that really moved further. They were actually the key people who held out during the pandemic and helped us to sort of translate these things into a workable solution. We also find that the SMEs have been pivotal in providing a driving role in adapting to businesses, making masks, making PPE kits, coming into supporting the economy, from health services to other ancillary services online. The digital transformation took place through the SMEs. Right? It was not the big companies that did it. So I think we owe a lot to them. We need to support them. And we have some great stories to share, the challenges that the SMEs faced, how did they overcome them, and how are they exploiting those opportunities to grow and scale. So without further ado, I think we should move on to the panel. And I would first like to ask Anna to sort of share with us her experiences in terms of, Anna, you have a global perspective on the challenges faced by SMEs from the Philippines. And maybe you could describe to us what measures you took to ensure the resilience of your business model, exploiting the opportunities to overcome the resources you have and the opportunities to overcome those challenges, and be taking a step forward in the right direction. So over to you, Anna.
Thank you, Denver. Good afternoon and hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. And I want to thank you for giving me the space to share our company's experiences as we navigate this pandemic. It has been very challenging indeed, to say the least, but we need to always have that thrust to survive, and not just to survive, but to thrive. So we are a women's wear brand in the Philippines. We are a fully integrated company with retail, trading, and manufacturing. So that is within our value chain. So the pandemic has been our biggest challenge, just like most of us here. So when the extreme community quarantine was announced in our country in March 2020, I had to make a quick and decisive decision. So together with my co-CEO, who happened to be my husband, we identified our crucial armor, which is to protect our company from the blows of the crisis. So more than a year later, we have evolved to become a more diverse fashion company. We have expanded our reach by catering to health facilities and other corporate industries that require protective wear. So we needed to stimulate our growth and have approached it in two ways. One is empowerment, the other one is sustainability. So you might ask, how are we able to stay alive and kicking? We are taking actually 3 steps. To simplify it, it has always been our guide. So we rethink, we reimagine, and then we reboot. So first, we assess the current situation by rethinking, acknowledging our strengths and weaknesses. So in our case, our manufacturing facility was our ticket to stability, knowing that we can create products using our sewing machines and assure that we can navigate through that, we can navigate the crisis because we're able to create this protective wears that is the most demandable product during this the peak of the pandemic. So how can we do that? We needed to make sure we have the support of our people. You know, they are actually our biggest asset. So we treat them well by providing them everything they need, even the most mundane of things like transportation, food, etc. But most of all, we offer them safety protection because it was very risky to be there during the height of the pandemic. But they understood the purpose that we wanted to do, and we needed them to help us. So we just needed to look at the underlying issues actually to be able to navigate it. So the second one is reimagining. So we reimagine our way forward. So we maximize the potential of our strength. And then after identifying also the weaknesses, we try now to imagine how we can adapt and apply innovation across our systems. So innovation actually thrives during a crisis. It lets us pave the way how we can rework the system so that it can now adapt to the ever-changing scenario. Having collaborations as well helped us through connecting with various communities throughout our value chain. So these things are, they all were very relevant. And another thing is the systems innovation. Because of this, we're able to reach farther our market with our revamped website and more strong digital connection and stronger digital assets as well. So we're able to put them together better now so that we can adapt to the demands. Digital connection is actually the way forward, right? The future is really all about the Internet of Things. But at the end of the day, we have to balance everything. So the emotional aspect also is very important for mental wellness. Otherwise, the tasks around us are all very, it's pretty overwhelming. So to balance, I try my best to do good in order to feel good. So the last one is to reboot. So we are now at this stage and we're trying to manage everything so that our trajectory will continuously evolve into, getting more positive impact in our progress. So in the reboot, we combine our assets and the innovation all together. So in order to put traction into the technology, the term we use actually is acceleration because of all the things we have done. Technology has put us in the proper place and prepared us for more challenges ahead. So from trying to survive to keeping afloat to putting trajectory for the growth of the business, maintaining the values is actually vital also to us. In all of this ever-changing developments, progression, we should also remember what the value of the company is so that we don't lose it out along the process. So our transformation did not only focus on one aspect of keeping our business alive, we were also able to strengthen it through our corporate social responsibility. So while our business is thriving, we remember to share our blessings and pushing forward our thrust for community development. And this is very important as we achieve our sustainable development goals. So through our being a participant member of the UNGC, it has really propelled our vision to sustainability. So for every decision that we make, we really affect the lives of our people. We care for them as we want for ourselves. We strive to do good and explore the bigger space around us. So in all of this, the bottom line really is, how do we create a more meaningful impact in all of the things that we are doing? It helps that we are motivated and we are passionate about our plans forward. As we develop and we progress, we also are very conscious of the things around us. So with that, I would like to end it with a simple statement that positive impact matters on the people, our environment, helping them while avoiding conflict along the way. So all of these are possible if we purposely connect with kindred spirits who will walk alongside our goal to live a more meaningful and happy journey. So thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate and I look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for those fabulous insights onto the business and how you, the adaptive nature of moving digital, taking stock of your infrastructure and your resources, the key resource being your people, the ability to convince them and develop the emotional and other confidence and stabilities to make use of that infrastructure. And very importantly, to transform into the digital way of transacting business or the E2E business in bringing that, and most importantly, doing what is right. And that is exactly what the UN SDGs are. And doing right, with the SMEs is a good way to start. And I think we should all look at investing in the SMEs to encourage them in doing what is right, because the SDGs is all about that. And we thank you so much for those insights. Now, without further ado, I would like to now sort of call upon Selena to, what do you think about the importance of integrating ethical and sustainable business practices into the mainstream business in order to take our local brands to the global market, which would make us more competitive, and people would desire our brand purely for what we stand for, and then the good quality of products. So over to you, Selena. Thank you.
Thank you, Denver. So to answer your question, I think maybe I'll start with just describing a little bit about a social business model. So, so my company, we kind of recognize ourselves, or we relate to what is called a social enterprise. So what we have at the core for what really guides our operations is a commitment to a triple bottom line. So while conventional companies really look to maximize profit as their kind of core mission among CSR activities and all of that, of course, but we say that you have to have people and planet at the heart of what you do. So profit is really the driver. It is not our end goal. So to kind of further clear what I'm saying is that we do maximize profit. Maximizing profit is part of our journey and part of our mission. But what we say is it's how you distribute your profit. That is really where I think companies need to head to, and that is really where the shift needs to happen if we want to have an equitable future, right? So at Celine, what we have is that model, and we weave handlooms, which is in the traditional sector of the company, sorry, of the country, which is not the company, I forget sometimes, and with handlooms, while producing handlooms and creating product for both the export market and also the retail market, we empower close to 1,000 artisans in the Kurunegala district and also across the island. So, I mean, it's a very simple way of working. We give my artisans the ability to access work by giving them the flexibility to work with the kind of challenges of being a woman, especially after marriage, especially with children, with senior care, within their responsibilities. And this is one of the many reasons why that women are largely in the informal sector of this country. So while giving them that access to work, we also give them the skills to work, which we feel that are necessary to ensure full empowerment, because it's not only about having a job. It's about understanding that women have to have assistance when it comes to their health. They need leadership training. They need to understand how to save. So in essence, what we try to do from our business model is give a woman a job, but also give her that environment where she is really in charge of the choices she makes. She makes that choice with awareness, capacity, and knowledge. So the handloom product is really the cherry on the top. You know, that is how we create product to sustain our business. So now, in answering your question directly, Denver, so with COVID, it was the biggest crisis I faced, at least in my time in the company. And I mean, what we really had to do was to make a very, very strategic choice. Do we remain committed to our purpose, or do we break away from that purpose in order to survive? My mother was very clear. She read us the kind of riot act and said, no one at Celine goes home. Absolutely no one. So if you are head of business development, you figure out how to keep this company going, right? So we made masks. We cut luxurious, fabulous saris to make masks. And we survived 6 months. We exported over 400,000 masks, which was huge for us at that point. And we managed to sustain our cash flows in order to really ensure that no one at Celine went home. We are not profiting and hardly profiting at this moment. But for me, the true success is that a 30-year business was really able to keep values and purpose at the core of what we are doing as we step into the future. And what is that future? And I will end with these comments, is that I feel as an industry leader in the handloom sector, many flaws in our industry was exposed due to COVID. Our people are largely in the informal sector. They have no social security nets. They are really at a point of, if you take the labor force, the craftsmen are really at the bottom of it. You know, there is no privilege, there is no, the outlook isn't great, right? So then how do I, as Celine, as a responsible business, purpose-driven business in this industry, how do we not only take Celine into the next 30 years, but how do we reposition handlooms, Sri Lanka's handlooms, into global markets to ensure that the entire sector is catalyzed, right? And how we are doing that is exactly repositioning our brand. We are looking at exporting fabric, exporting fabric into premium luxury markets. And I think the icing on the cake, and where it's really relevant to this conversation on sustainability and ethical manufacturing, is that the question of transparency. How far should or ought companies have, how far can we go, ought to go, in order to ensure that there's transparency, that there's no greenwashing? And in this way, we are integrating blockchain into our supply chains to really give my consumer the ability to understand where their product has come from, who's making their product, what's the impact of this product. And this way, I think not only will we be able to really revolutionize a product in the sector, but also revolutionize how the industry treats its artisans. And I think, I said a lot, it's a huge thing in a really long, short time. I'm open to questions, but the crux of it is, what must business do at this moment to remain true to their values, true to their purpose, and really take steps to grow, to position ourselves, to position ourselves as Sri Lankan brands into a world market, selling a value-added, valuable product, while again remaining true to our purpose. So values come at the start, create, innovate, do whatever you want in the center, but you really cross-check yourself with the values. So that's kind of answering your question and saying a little bit more, Denver. I hope that's clear.
Thank you so much, Celine. I really love the part that you spoke about transparency. And today, there isn't a single boardroom in any of the top private equity venture capitalists, you name any of the financing places, that does not discuss ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. And being responsible. And ESG is all about a transparency story covering your entire enterprise. And that's exactly what you highlighted, from people to understanding the planet issues, understanding the health resilience matters, the climate resilience matters that you have taken into consideration. Also to the flexibility that you are given for diversity, inclusivity in a transparent manner, without being just a policy paper that remains in someone's assets register, right? But you actually have made it to work. And I think that's a great story that the audience and those who are there can take a leaf from. And it is impactful, right? It is absolutely impactful that you can really manage that, to be bold, to bring it out. It will definitely give encouragement to those who are thinking about it. And I would say doing right is profitable, because your brand is going to expand your market share. So actually doing right is profitable. So we don't need to run away that it's a philanthropic thing. No, absolutely profitable by doing what is right. So great. Thank you so much, Celine, for that. Now I would like to call upon Mr. Suresh Dimel. Suresh, if you could just share your perspectives on the importance of developing SMEs to build the Sri Lanka export market and its impactful nature on the country's economy, which is very significant from what we've understood. Over to you, Suresh. Thank you.
Thank you, Denver. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to tell you what a pleasure it is to be among two of my favorite people here, Selina and Randula. And Anna spoke about kindred spirits, and I think three of us can claim that we are kindred spirits in the subject of social enterprise and SMEs. Now, these two subjects go together in the Sri Lankan context because of the state of the SMEs today. And Selina talked about the informal sector. The problem is that majority of the SME sector today in Sri Lanka is informal. Even the so-called formal SME is only semi-formal. That's, that can be attributed to many issues. The first issue that I would like to highlight is the development of Sri Lanka being in urban areas, and particularly in the Western Province and Colombo, because it seems like the development in Sri Lanka is directly proportional to the distance from Colombo. And this has created a situation where there is lack of institutional capacity to empower SMEs throughout the country. So majority of SMEs live away from the cities and are struggling. Now, the struggle I would like to list out. First, when you look at it from an exporter standpoint or a supply chain standpoint, entrepreneurship, the SMEs struggle with poor access to markets, poor access to finance, access to know-how and technology, and therefore access to opportunity for growth. And most importantly, their inability to participate in policy dialogue. Now, these are issues I highlight as being key to understanding the SME situation in Sri Lanka. And due to this poor access to these 5 areas that I listed, the SME is vulnerable to exploitation. They lack entrepreneurship skills. They depend on the government or donor funding. They lack appreciation for quality control. And obviously they will lag behind in socio-economic development. And they are unable to contribute effectively to the national economy. And last but not the least, the problem, one of the big problems that challenges Sri Lanka is corruption. And I'm afraid that this informality and lack of empowerment and the subject of corruption, the SMEs are contributing to that in a big way because of their informality. From just the definition of informality starts corruption. So we have widespread corruption in this country attributed to the lack of empowerment of SMEs. Now, I know I'm going to be saying things that are generally not talked about in fora, because this somehow, we've been, even myself, we've been talking, the common thing that everybody knows, and we have not been thinking out of the box. And obviously nothing has changed for a long time. And our contribution to the economy from the SMEs has not expanded. So obviously we haven't been doing something right. And that's why I feel like even though we risk the we risk, especially me being in government, I also risk the reputation of the government or reputation of the country, and so on, by mentioning things like this in public forum. However, we must look at the positive side. Now, our president in his manifesto has very clearly outlined development of SMEs in many ways. And if you see, we have added a bunch of ministries into our portfolio. I mean, that seems like the last thing we should have done. However, the good news is that these ministries, headed by some dynamic young ministers, state ministers, are doing a great job focusing on SMEs, whether it is in spices or coconut products or batiks, handlooms, anything. These ministries have the potential to do even better. Now, with the COVID, we've all been challenged we are unable to perform the best we can, but we are very hopeful that now we are learning how to cope with the COVID and not only survive, but succeed through the COVID. And we have to take the SMEs with us. I believe that the gap between the rich and the poor has increased due to COVID worldwide. So this idea of social enterprise and the concern for society is going to be very important. And I would like to say that the solution is collaboration. Now in Sri Lanka, again, Sri Lanka has a tendency to work in our silos. I would say whether it is in our government offices or in public or in society, we are in silos. We are great social networkers, but beyond that, we don't network very much. So that's something we have to look at moving forward, is to have a collaborative culture, to create a collaborative culture where the rich can, I mean, we need to create platforms where the rich can support the poor and the poor can reach out to the rich. So that is, in a nutshell, the concerns, and maybe I have highlighted some solutions also, Denver, and I'm sure we can add more value to that during our questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suresh, for the very bold statements you made in understanding the realities. And I think that's the key, right? If we don't take stock of where we are and what are the challenges we face, and also understanding them is key. The next is, fixing them. And as you said, there is some hope, and there are measures being taken to support the SMEs, and there is a highest level of government being interested in driving this. And I think even for the big companies, it's about looking at your supply chain, right? And you see most of these SMEs are a part of that supply chain. And if we can, convince them about the need to be sustainable, the need for quality, the need for speed, which really is going to be the driving transformation and change, you need to be competitive to increase market share, to increase your capacity, to increase your value proposition, would be absolutely essential for those on this audience to take a couple of, take a step back and say, what am I doing differently to scale and improve quality in a sustainable manner without compromising values? And I think the values of the UN SDGs comes foremost to mind. About doing what is right, as the previous speaker spoke. So thank you very much, Suresh, for those insightful words and encouragement. We'll come back to you. And without further ado, I would now like to call upon Randula. Randula, thank you so much for coming in. And we would really like to understand from you how you're promoting the innovation, the growth, the collaboration that is so vital for the SME landscape and development in Sri Lanka. So over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Denver. And what a pleasure to be speaking among these panelists about a topic that's so close to all of our hearts. All of us really are working towards developing our economy in a much more sustainable way. And it's such a good timing to be speaking about this together with these panelists. I've been working in private sector development for close to a decade now, both in the startup ecosystem as well as the SME landscape. And today, in the light of this conversation, I would like to draw from the experiences I've had in promoting innovation, like you said, Denver, growth and collaboration specifically in the SME sector in Sri Lanka. Like Suresh very well mentioned in his comments as well, we are all working in silos, and there's so many disconnections in the economic landscape in Sri Lanka. And this is what we propose to really address, and this is what we've been working on for the past 3 years. The pandemic came to us when Sri Lanka was in the midst of a rapid transformation. There were new technologies emerging, businesses were changing, value chains were growing to be really very more complex. Global consumers, like Selena mentioned, was asking for much more different things like traceability and transparency. And SMEs in particular were affected by the speed and associated risks of these technological advancements and transformations. And it was a time where they were anyway facing endless amount of challenges with these emerging technologies requiring either high investments or competencies, and ever-changing and challenging international competition that was growing. And sometimes most of the companies that we work with were failing to battle it all out simply due to the lack of time. And dealing with all of this, it's a big ask for a company to do good while trying to do well, which is why the core values of being a conscious company or being a company that is rooted in sustainable practices is a difficult thing to meet when adversities as such, like the COVID pandemic, really comes forth in a period of transition. And this is what we at Good Life X is here to solve, where we operate as a catalyst supporting SMEs, working along with them as their transformation agent, bringing innovation to their company, and also really helping them to root themselves in conscious and regenerative principles. And during the course of our 3 years of working with startups and SMEs, predominantly in the food and agriculture, wellness, travel and tourism sectors, we've seen some who really broke through and emerged as a company that really thrives and does good to their community and their value chains, and some who falls behind. And with all of the adversities that COVID brought about, it also brought about some which it also brought about an advantage, which is time, which gave SMEs the time and the space to really make a transition into becoming much more conscious and perhaps even future-proof. And if I may share some examples of 50+ companies that we've really worked with across these sectors who are really fighting the good fight during the midst of the pandemic, I think there's a lot of good learnings to draw from on how a company can do good while doing well. I think one thing that came across as a constant with all of the companies who knuckle down to do good while doing well is really the openness in their mindset to innovate and to really do good. And I think being an SME with an open and a flexible mindset is so much more powerful, because SMEs are combined with the power of the people and the experience that they have in their hand. And that combined with the openness to innovation really is a game changer. And uncertainty, like we all know, in the right hands can turn into opportunity. Few of the travel sector companies that we worked with last year in 2020 at the height of the COVID pandemic lockdown responded to closure of all tourism activities quite smartly in nature of short-term pivots. And the process of making a comeback with a short-term pivot often starts with exploring new alternatives, searching for variety, and taking the risk to experiment, but also working with their community, working with their employees to really convince and make that transition possible. And one such company is Infinity Vacations, who's working with a fleet of drivers and tourism and travel operators who diversified into a spice brand and also a mobile garage during 2020. None of these businesses were things that they were ready to do or thought of doing ever, but without sending their employees home, without leaving the families that were depending on this business unfed, they managed to create not one but many pivots, which helped them keep their staff's families fed and face that adversity together as one community. And they were able to do that because they were able to really work together with that community, and they were able to respond very fast in order to meet the need of the hour. Another interesting pivot that I can talk about is JCAB Holdings in Trincomalee. It's a beachside park and resort that really struggled to get enough cash flow to manage their day-to-day operations when the COVID hit last year, when there was no travel, no local travel, none of that was happening. And as an innovative idea to retain staff, JCAB decided to engage them in producing ornamental landscaping plants and also organic and composting fertilizers as an alternate business initiative. This enabled them to pay their staff's full amount of salary. And it was a very proactive and innovative thought of the owner that not only helped his business, but also safeguarded the livelihood of nearly, I think, 62 families during the COVID crisis. So these are, I think, two examples of companies who really not only survived, but made their community thrive during a very adverse time. And other two agriculture sector companies that really use this time to grow their business. One is Wagga Naturals, who made the use of the lockdown to get certified and increase their accessibility to international markets. And our coconut rebel, Dulara, of Ceylon Exports and Trading, one of the champion companies of Good Life X, who used this time to really grow a B2C brand called Cocoa House, and changed his game digitally and really improved his core competencies digitally and improved his functionality of SEO and digital penetration, which made him also rank as #1 on Google on coconut exporters, and made him really operate his factory at 100% capacity even during the COVID lockdown. So I think these are a few examples that I can draw from our portfolio of companies who really faced the adversities and took it on to really respond in a very different way, in a very innovative way, through flexibility and openness to meet that challenge. And I think in order to harness technological transformation, new partnerships of working with new innovative companies who are ready to help, working with peers who are ready to resource share, working with your employees and other stakeholders who are facing similar problems, attempting to solve it together. Collaboration is key to help SMEs really overcome these adversities and enable innovation, especially in emerging markets like Sri Lanka. And I think this is only possible if we approach it with an open mindset, transparency, and trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Randula, for those fabulous, encouraging stories that you shared. And if I may say so, the critical part and the commonality of all the stories you shared was the desire and the resilience with a passion to stay in there, right? That's the core. You get that piece right, and then transformation and innovation is natural. It's not, it just happens because you're not going to let go. You put a stake in the ground, right? And that's what really makes, and that then brings a focus on understanding your talents, understanding your talent pool, understanding your capabilities, and your competencies. This drives you and probably most of the other SMEs to really focus on what is the next level we need to do. Not only just survive, how do we survive better? And that brings into certifications, understanding the need to improve quality, credibility, which are, I think, absolutely essential for any SME. Innovation and ideas are great, but following it through with quality and speed is the real cherry on top. And if you don't get that right, you can have multiple ideas floating around for years, and it's not there. And doing it right, taking pride in attention to detail, taking pride in being able to do it. So I think these were fantastic ideas that, I think if I would echo all three of our panelists and Mr. Dimel would also share, was featured on that. So let me be going now to the question and answer sessions. And if I may sort of pose the question to Anna. Anna, you have a global perspective on the challenges faced by SMEs that you highlighted to us. Can you just describe what measures you took to ensure the resilience of your business model? I know you spoke to us a little bit about it, but it'll be interesting to get a perspective on that quickly.
I wanted to always have this guideline, whether you're able to respond or not. It's always focusing your ability to identify the strengths of your company, so that you can identify also how to respond to it. Maybe instead of sharing my personal experience, I will give you a more general perspective, because this is how we do it in our company. So after identifying my strength and the strength of our people, we pick up from there. We try to innovate from the capabilities that is already within us. And from there, we also consider what's around us. Around us are so many different opportunities. Instead of focusing on the problems, you focus on the solutions. There are a lot of innovative ideas that only if you believe that something else can be done. The opportunity is so wide. Every time there is a crisis, there is always the bigger, chance of responding in a more comprehensive way, and that defines you as a leader. Trying to make a difference on what is present and how you can evolve it, transform it into something that can be adapted. Yeah, so it's essentially that's how we do it. And yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, excellent, Anna. So the whole concept of pulling it together, keeping the focus, I think those were the key messages we got in terms of holding the SMEs to face the challenges. And basically, as I said, not giving up and putting a stake in the ground and said, we are moving forward. And I think that's the drive that really is. So if I may ask another question from Selina. Selina, do you have any tips for SMEs on some key measures, 2 measures they can take to be competitive and resilient to both, climate situations, health situations, political situations, so there are multiple things that will come, right? The challenges are there, but what would your ideas be on that? Any measures that they can take specifically?
Yeah, Dan, I mean, thinking as you're talking, I mean, this is a question that is asked often. And I think at the outset, one must say that, it is, as is running a business, everything is contextual, no? Like your problem is very much your problem. But I feel what has, and I can only talk from my experience, and what has really helped Celine in its journey is perhaps 2 to 3 things. And one of it, and I think these are some of the tips that I can kind of share. One of it is the mindset to collaborate. I think that is extremely, I think it is the most important thing at this moment, because to access market, to remain competitive, all of that, it's a lot of different components from, I mean, very, like I said, very contextual to a business. But that spirit of collaboration, that mindset to collaborate, to co-create is really what's going to take your business from here to the next level. And I think I can speak from my experience, and that is what really propelled Celine, I think, throughout the COVID. Randula's shaking her head because we became friends, really good friends during COVID. Like we spoke so much every day, started with 3 of us, then by the end of the 6 months or whatever, I don't know how long it's been now. I mean, there were like not hundreds, but quite a bit of us talking, like ideating, how do we remain competitive? How do we break free and break through, you know? So I think that, and not everyone can collaborate, Denver. I think in the typical mindset of a business, you compete, and it is on the basis of competition that this world has grown. You know, the whole capitalistic model is based on competition. But the new business model for the future is on collaboration. And that shift has to happen across the board, from SMEs to big corporates across the world, if we are to really grow as a world and not as our business. And the other thing I think is to, a part of this, but in your agility, in your differentiation, in your innovation, in your creativity, and I think I'm repeating myself here from what I said before, to really keep purpose at the core. Because if you know what you're doing, you're true to your values, you can differentiate your product. You can do all these other things that really make you compete, like really go into new markets. But your authenticity is in your purpose. And when you know that, you are able to really break through into a market. I don't think we even know our potential. So if we are able to collaborate, and if we are able to really keep that purpose-led kind of authenticity within us, especially as Sri Lankan SMEs, I have to say this, there are so many amazing SMEs in this country. I mean, we have really looked after our people. We have really looked after our environment, and we continue to be the backbone of this economy. As you said, there's amazing stories. So if we are to really understand that that strength is in that kind of our natural inclination to collaborate, our natural inclination to keep purpose at our core, this is our opening, because the world wants it. And if the Sri Lankan government too can understand that that this is the core of, this is the value of Sri Lankan SMEs, we are no longer going to be part of like the tourism industry and this and that and all of that. We are going to be the SME sector who has this amazing story to tell the world. So I think, yeah, that's what I want to add.
Celine, thank you so much. I think this is absolutely encouraging and heartwarming, and certainly in the right direction. And the core essence, you know, I would say collaboration and communication, right, which is the key, the ability to communicate and articulate what we have to say in a manner which we are doing. See, we are doing a lot of the right things, but we sometimes struggle to express ourselves crisply and to articulate it in the right forums with the right wordsmith language that we need to use. And I think that's something that we can help the SMEs to really put the language into that. They are doing a great job. And I think the core purpose and values, because people are willing to pay more, which is for the right product with the right values. People are willing to join a company saying, what's your purpose in the company? How are you building that? So these are some great things. And I would also say, you know, my next question goes out to Suresh, but you were also speaking about the challenge of corruption in the country. And my personal belief is that through the digital social media platforms and the digital enablement, the society is going to draw attention on the leaders and put pressure on them to do what is right. Corruption will be going away very fast if we keep consistently at reporting it. Now, whether they take action or not is up to the leaders, but very soon it's going to force their hand to walk away from it if they ever want to be anywhere close to the leadership chair, right? So I think that's a great place that technology, our literacy rate, the SMEs, and good vision and thought is taking us to. So Suresh, my question to you is, if you could just describe how the Export Development Board, the SMEs in the post-COVID future, especially with regards to business resilience and any aspects that you would like to share with the team right now.
Thank you, Denver. Yeah, I would like to say that the top item on my agenda is to create the collaborative framework between the supply chains and the markets. Believe it or not, every top exporter from Sri Lanka has either a supply chain issue or a production issue, other than IT maybe, okay? But in products and maybe not the services industry as much as in the product exports. So this is because of this gap between the SMEs and the and reality, you know, and if we are going to do anything like that, we have to first understand the issues, and that's what we talked about earlier, and then the importance of collaboration. Now, yesterday, I will tell you an example, because I think that will explain, I can explain myself much better with examples. Yesterday, I was in Hanguranketa, which is 4 hours. It took me 5 hours yesterday with the traffic, but 4 hours away from Colombo. And I was with some coffee growers from the area. We are creating a coffee export processing village. Now, helping these people to understand the quality that is necessary for export is much more difficult on the ground than it is for us to talk or write in newspapers or whatever, right? Because yesterday I was sitting with some people talking, because the buyer was there, the exporter that is connected with this export processing village was there. And for him, the biggest challenge was the quality of product he was going to get. Now we can distribute coffee plants, we can distribute organic fertilizer, we can do everything we have. And I must say, I myself buy from, you know, I export organic spices, and I have the best certified spices in the country when it comes to ethical and organic and all that. However, I can't get the microbiological certificate because my producers don't believe in quality, okay, or don't understand that. I mean, some of them think they can't. So this is where collaboration is absolutely necessary. And let me tell you an important initiative that with this export processing village concept, we are also developing a concept called Export House. Now, this is in our EDB Act from 1979, but this time this Export House is going to be to develop SME supply chains. Export houses, hopefully, I hope we can incentivize them to develop SME supply chains and develop the supply chain.
Thank you, Suresh. We are just running out of a little bit of time. I just have one more question. We are running short of time. Sorry to interrupt. If we can, we'll come back.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you off here. But Randula, I just have one question to you. With digital technology being the key enabler of competitive and global environment, yet many SMEs still do not seem to have the resources to access such technologies. Can you explain a little bit about how Good Life X can help SMEs to bridge this gap? We are already out of time. We've gone over the limits, so sorry
Sure,
about
I'll keep it, no problem. I'll keep it very, very short. I think in 2 ways, Denver. Firstly, we help SMEs to come out of the mindset of trying to solve everything, doing everything by themselves. That's a massive roadblock, like you said. A lot of people want to hoard spaces, keep it to themselves, and not open up to work with anybody who can solve that problem. And thereby, we've seen companies who just sit on the most simple technological or digital integration for years. And by working with them, by introducing to the right kind of experts and really walking that journey with them into undoing their mind blocks as well as digital blocks, they overcome it like in a matter of months. So it really is about building that trust, getting the right expertise on board and working with them to undo certain roadblocks and to build simple most solutions that are needed. Sometimes it's not really, you know, as complex as blockchain or as complex as, you know, the next IoT device. It's something as simple as SEO or as simple as backward integration or managing that channels operations. So we have to help them get the basics right. And this is something that we really do. We go to their level and understand what are the roadblocks, how can we really solve it, and bring in the right expertise to do that. And more than anything, introduce the right kind of partners who've got the same values and intentions at their core to do right by the community, to do right by the industry, so that they, even after us, would work in a very tightly knit community and a collaborative manner to go on an upward spiral to build even further technological solutions for these SMEs. So we introduce a lot of tech startups that works with us into the SMEs that we work with, so that there's a generational bridge and a bridging of a gap as well. And that's how we disrupt silos and really enhance digital solutions into SMEs.
Fabulous, Randula. Thank you very much. We're already 2 minutes over time, but if I could give each one of you sort of 30 seconds, what's the one message you would like to give to our SMEs? And if I may start with Anna.
Try to think out of the box and try to be the bridge that connects the gaps. You know, think of a solution, focus on it, and try to respond to it from your own strength.
So focus on the solution and not the problem. Great. Selena, over to you.
I think it's to be fearless and just do what you think is right, because I think the world is ready for it.
So fearless, being bold, and steaming ahead. Great, Selena. Suresh, message from you.
Collaborate, think out of the box. I think we are all kindred spirits. We've been talking about the same thing. And I think, you know, obviously we can talk about this for a lot longer, but we have to encourage the SMEs to collaborate, as well as the markets also to understand that they need to work closer with the supply chains. Yeah. And exporters to work closer with the supply chains. And that would be my message.
So collaborate and work together would be the message from Suresh to the teams. Randula, over to you, the last mile.
I think it's all about growing the pie versus splitting the pie. And I think that is a key thing to keep in mind. And don't be afraid to change. And that's how we all can evolve. So just jump right in and grow a pair of wings on the way.
Fabulous, Randula. Thank you for very much. And I guess, you know, the only constant in life is change. And the sooner you embrace it and ride the wave, you're through. So thank you very much to this fabulous panel for being there, taking the questions, and apologies to UNGC. We are 5 minutes over the mark. So thank you very much, team. And Janani, over to you to close. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to this esteemed panel for that wonderful discussion. We were all engrossed and we loved all the things that you said. And again, thank you for accepting our invitation and joining us for this very important session.